Hello dear 1000 PS friends, and welcome back to this new video and welcome to the track days. We're at the Pannonia Ring, although that's not really the main point here. What matters is this: we've got an entry-level super sport bike here for under 10,000 euros. Can you actually have fun with 90 horsepower, or is something missing? I'm going to find out for you. I don't want to give too much away, but if you ask me right now, Amelie, how would you describe it best? The CFMoto 675 SRR. Then I'd say, think of a player who doesn't have the biggest hitting power, but makes up for it with pinpoint accuracy. That's exactly what this bike is, or both of them. Same bike, either way. And that really sums up the CFMoto very, very well. It's a super sport aimed at beginners, or more specifically at a younger generation of riders. And that naturally comes with a few things. Yeah, you haven't got 1,000 cubic centimeter machine here that will do everything in third gear while you lazily cruise around without shifting. You do have to work a bit for your money here, but it is very little money because we're talking about roughly 9,000 euros. And I honestly think that in this class, you won't really get more bike for your money anywhere else. And I'm going to take a closer look now at exactly what you get. We've got a proper 3-cylinder here, what I like to call a sweet spot triple, because the same applies here too. It pulls cleanly right from the bottom all the way to the top, revs out beautifully without ever feeling nervous. And I think that's probably the quality I noticed most strongly on this bike. And it's also what I really grew to love about it. It doesn't have that aggressive character that's always edgy, always demanding more, with everything feeling a bit rougher. Here it's genuinely precise, it's composed, it's elegant, and it really is a sharp tool. I'd actually say it's more of a corner hunter than a power bike that only feels at home blasting down the straights. And I think I was actually a pretty good person to test it, because personally it's not all about having the biggest power figures, the hardest shove, or the strongest drive. For me, what I want is a bike that's agile above all else and gives me confidence at the same time. And that's exactly what you get here. Ready to ride, it weighs around 190 to 195 kilos. So I'd say it's average in that sense, not too light, not too heavy. And that brings me straight to one point that really, I have to say, surprised me. You really do sit incredibly well in the bike. I always like to say you become one unit with it. The tank is fairly tall, but you don't get that awkward feeling you sometimes have on other bikes. And I've had that quite a few times where you're not quite sure how to get around it. Like, do I have to twist myself into some weird shape now, bend awkwardly, and everything feels uncomfortable? And you end up thinking, well, this isn't actually that great after all, no problem like that here whatsoever. I really like how they've handled the shape of the tank. With your arms, you just become one with the bike, and as I said before, it feels really natural. And when you start moving around on it side to side, it's super easy. It's just good fun. The lines you naturally form with your arms on this bike are spot on, genuinely. And when you want to go into a bit of hang-off, you've also got excellent support against the tank. And even in hang-off, it just finds that perfect middle ground. I really have to say that. The precision, the agility, the way it changes direction, and the composure it brings with it, that's what defines this bike in my eyes. And that's exactly where the fun comes from. I always like it, and in fact, it's probably the best thing when I get to try a bike on track that gives me this sort of sense of being looked after. And that's exactly the feeling you get here. You feel really well taken care of. It is anything but nervous. It's predictable in the best possible sense. One last point on the riding position itself, because of the way your legs sit on the bike, hang-off felt really easy for me personally. You've also got loads of contact with the bike, and you can hold on securely. You simply feel in control of it. It's very easy to decide exactly how much lean angle you want. And I personally like that a lot. The overall silhouette is just spot on when you do want to move around a bit on the bike. I also rode it on the standard tires it comes with from the factory. It's fitted with CST Magra S3Ns, and even there I was surprised by how confidently they performed. More generally, the feedback from the front wheel was really good too. I always had the feeling that I knew exactly what was going on underneath me. There were no surprises. Even if something does happen, you don't immediately lose traction and end up in trouble. You can see the tire has had a bit of a hard time, sure, but honestly, I've often had it before at the circuit where even after a full lap, the tire still didn't feel properly warm or nicely settled. Here, by the third or fourth corner, I already felt like I could really start getting on the gas. Of course, you're always playing it safe if you give it another minute. But like I said, for road tires, and especially the tires it comes with as standard, that is a very, very good performance. And that's another important point. Quite often when you buy a bike in the middleweight class, something that doesn't cost quite as much, you can't always expect the best when it comes to the tires. But here, as I said, that was a really positive surprise. Aside from that, it also brings the kind of equipment you'd expect as state-of-the-art these days. It has a TFT display. Everything is very easy to read. You've got the rev bar across the top and all the other key information. And if you want to adjust the traction control or ABS, everything is easy to call up. The controls themselves, the buttons, were also very well done. I never had any issues with anything being hard to reach, sticking, feeling loose or rattly. When it comes to braking, and especially the ABS, I do unfortunately have to say that the ABS cuts in very early. So when you really get on the brakes a bit more and want to shift down before a corner, you do have to keep that in mind because the hazard lights keep coming on and you're thinking, right, what I actually want here is braking performance, not all this intervention. So for me, that would be one area where I'd say it could definitely come in a bit later. Another point I look at a bit more critically is that you do get a quick shifter, but no auto blipper. So clutchless upshifts are absolutely fine. Just in the lower gears, you need to make sure you've got the revs right because otherwise it can get a bit snatchy. But on a sports bike, that's fairly normal. The lack of an auto blipper means downshifting still has to be done with the clutch, and that is a bit of a shame because when you're in that rhythm, in that flow, and you're feeling good, you have to break that motion slightly, reach for the clutch and then shift down. But for me, especially if you're saying, I'm not only taking this to the track, I also want to ride it in a sporty way in everyday life, that's not really a problem at all. To sum it up for you once again, and maybe also from a more emotional point of view, because I always like that best and I think it captures what really matters. This thing is an absolute fun machine. No, it's not boring. And no, the 90 horsepower and the performance it delivers are not too little. Not if you're someone who says, I don't need the biggest, most powerful toy on track to have a proper good time. What it's built to do, it does unbelievably well, precise, stable, agile, and at the same time just genuinely warm-hearted. I think that probably describes it best. For me, it was an absolute privilege to have it with me throughout the track day and over these 2 days here in beautiful weather. And now the question goes to you. Do you think that's actually a bike I'd really like to try, that interests me, and maybe I'd like to challenge my own preconceptions a bit? The idea that a 90 horsepower bike has no place at the Pannonia Ring? Or would you still say, no, I'd rather go for 1,000 and just ride everything in fourth? I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come along to a track day yourselves if you haven't done that yet. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and bye-bye.